Hello everybody. Black Ops 2 Zombies is generally regarded as one of the best, if not the best, Treyarch Zombies game in the entire series, and is remembered fondly by many who have great memories of the game and its many maps. Chances are, if you were to ask someone what their favorite zombies is, BO2 will probably be the response you get the most. However, I personally beg to differ. There's always a downside to nostalgia, and this game is not above that pitfall by any means. While it is remembered fondly by many, Black Ops 2 Zombies as a game, in many ways changed the game mode, albeit for the worse. The main issue for these are the fetch quests. Fetch quests in a game are not a bad thing necessarily, not even in Zombies for that matter. In fact, Black Ops 2 has done fetch quests in their game semi-successfully to some degree. However, Black Ops 2's maps have a tendency to make these fetch quests a bit cumbersome for the mode, not even taking into account the environments they tend to be put in. A perfect example of this would be Transit, the launch map of the game, which has Pack-a-Punch split into multiple parts, rather than being a singular thing you have to open or do a short task for. This alone is a microcosm of the experience for the most part, as it shows how even a small part of the game, as integral as a weapon upgrade system, has now been overcomplicated due to the need for... I don't even know what they were thinking with that one, but I'm not going to rant about each individual Black Ops 2 map, because that video would be a bit of a bore.
Might make a top 5 Black Ops 2 maps though, if you're interested.
So hold that thought. However, I'm going to talk about what is considered the king of Black Ops 2 Zombies, that being Mob of the Dead. And I'm also going to throw Origins in there for good measure, cause why not? Now, I want to get this out of the way real quick. I do not hate the concept, storyline, or even characters and other side mechanics of Mob of the Dead. I instead will be chastising the main issues of the map's main mechanics and gameplay arc. Zombies is supposed to be a fairly casual experience with optional Easter eggs and some cool secrets added in as a bonus. Adding unnecessary fetch quests stuffed in a shoebox or a minefield, depending on the map, is not a fun or fair challenge, especially when it's required to do something super basic, but we'll go deeper with that later. Starting off with the first main issue in Mob of the Dead, there is no power switch.
You think this is funny? In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
This doesn't seem like a huge issue at first glance, but what this does is force you to use another ability they specifically added to this map so that you can even turn on the power, and even then you have to do this every time you want to turn on a specific perk machine or open a specific door to get a power up, on top of attempting to fill the main questline of the game.
Yes, there is a questline for a Zombies map, and it's required.
Which includes having to use the Afterlife feature to gain access to a key that is required to get all the parts so you can build a plane. Now, can you guess what the purpose of said plane ride is? Did you say Pack-a-Punch? Well, sadly, you're correct. All I have really to say about this is one small question for Treyarch, which is why? No, seriously, what makes you think that it's a good idea to take a round-based mode and force a convoluted fetch quest with experimental mechanics into it, especially when said experimental mechanics are required to be used in order to do anything beyond basically Nocturne Toten tier gameplay? Except Nocturne Toten was intended to be a basic bare-bones map when it was first released in World at War back in 2008. Mob of the Dead was intended to be an expansion into a narrative-based mode. This sounds like a cool idea, but when you do like they did, and add a bunch of stuff to it to make it more complex, in an attempt to fulfill that, you don't really make the game more fun. You make casual players like myself want to avoid playing the map entirely. Notice how I said players, because in multiplayer, each player only gets one afterlife, and certain parts now require 2 players to obtain instead of just 1. Oh yeah, and keep in mind, as you progress through the map, every area is in some way tightly enclosed or narrow, with a handful of exceptions, so you have to time your moves perfectly. But this isn't just a problem with a single map, this applies to the other maps as well, to some degree. The other major example being Origins, which is what we will talk about right now. Now, this map doesn't have as many problems as Mob of the Dead, however, the fundamental issues still persist, albeit in different forms. For one, there is a quick revive and power, but said power is split into 6 different generators spread throughout the entire map. The mystery box also requires power to be on in the area where it is located for it to work, which, for the record, doesn't even make any sense, but whatever. The same also goes for any perks that you might want, but at least this map introduced the Wonder Fizz machine, so it's not as terrible as it might seem at first glance. But the map layout itself is comprised of the same type of areas as Mob, that being tightly enclosed spaces and narrow corridors, with the addition of more wide open areas that are more common, but they're made up of mud that slows the player down. This is a terrible addition because it artificially inflates the difficulty of the map, as opposed to designing a map that creatively sets limits on the player without suffocating the player.
What I just said doesn't really make sense, so I'm gonna elaborate.
Moon is a perfect example of this, because its zero gravity feature slows you down in outside areas, or areas that have been decompressed by the excavators, except in this case the zero gravity also negatively affects the zombies' movement as well, and makes getting away easier in some cases. In Origins, the mud slows you down, but simultaneously allows the zombies to stay at the same speed they were on normal ground, which for the record is total bullshit. Oh yeah, and I haven't even talked about the boss zombies from both these maps either yet. Boss zombies are an interesting addition to the zombies mode in my opinion, and they work fairly well with the mode overall ever since the addition of hellhounds in Shinonuma. But the problem with these boss zombies in particular, Brutus and the Panzer from Origins, is that rather than being simply either a tough enemy that has its own dedicated round, or a slightly tougher enemy that helps in dealing with the rest of the horde, that also grants some type of reward upon its death,
Black Ops 2 boss zombies are
tough zombies that are mixed in with the rest of the horde that also grant a completely random reward upon death. So you can kind of see how the boss zombies in particular mess up the flow of an already screwed up zombies experience. For instance, Brutus upon death will give you a random power up entirely, and when he spawns in the map, the zombies still continue to spawn. The Panzer is still slightly better in that you can sometimes drop a staff part occasionally, or in something better, but given his abilities and how hard he is to kill, mixing him in with the rest of the zombies doesn't really do anything great. In fact, the only thing it does is fucking piss me off. In short, Black Ops 2 Zombies, while it is fun to play from time to time, it added some cool ideas to the mode of zombies as a whole. It's ultimately remembered through a rose-tinted glass to some degree, and there's nothing wrong with nostalgia, but it is important to understand what actually makes games and their various parts what they are. Why should we understand this? Because I said so. Don't question my authority.
Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you stuck around to the end, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions. Also be sure to follow my social medias, my Twitch profile, and my Rumble profile for videos that won't get posted to YouTube, aka special content. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.